What's up, party people? Casey here. How is everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to another episode of Tedious and Inaccessible, the home quarantine edition. So we're going to jump right in. I've got a really simple dish for you guys tonight. You're going to look at this and say, well, that's neither tedious nor inaccessible. And that's kind of the point, right? If I haven't said so far, and I bet plenty of you have figured it out, tedious and inaccessible is meant ironically. It's just the perception that cooking can be difficult or challenging or hard. I try my best to kind of break it down, make it interesting and flavorful, but something that everybody can do. So that's the point. And apropos of nothing and requested by no one, tonight we're going to do a perfectly roasted chicken over a bed of vegetables, namely rutabaga, onion, potato, carrot, and leek, and turnips. So it's a good combination of vegetables there. So out of the gate, I'm going to tell you we have nothing exotic in terms of ingredients. Maybe the most that you may not be used to is a rutabaga or a turnip. And if you aren't used to them, you should get used to them because they are delicious. Everything else is incredibly straightforward. So we're going to have a great roasted caramelized side of vegetables, a perfectly roasted chicken, and on the side, because I can't help myself, I always have to serve some kind of starch with a vegetable and a protein. I'm going to do some Israeli couscous, and this is where things might get just fractionally a little more exotic. Israeli couscous, these kind of larger pearls will get a little bit bigger and be sort of pasta-like in texture. I'm going to try to make that a little more interesting and add coconut milk. I've got half water, half coconut milk. These type of dried starches, if you will, are really terrific to soak up a ton of flavor, not just water. It's kind of boring. I've tried lime juice, I've tried coconut milk, I've tried a lot of different things. So in this case, I'm going to infuse in my coconut milk and water some lemongrass, some ginger, get that on the burner and get it kind of infused nicely. And then that will be the liquid we use to infuse the Israeli couscous to add just a little bit more flavor. So we'll get that started and we'll be right back. Okay, so I should mention a big credit to our new cameraman on Tedious and Inaccessible. He's 8 years old. He's pretty amazing. His name is Finn Browning.
Hello.
Yay, take him out. All right, so Finn's running the camera, so that's pretty amazing. All right, first thing we want to do is get our water and coconut mixture into a big pot. Because again, I want to infuse a little more flavor in that coconut milk, which I love as a flavor by itself, but even better with some other things. Come on in, Finn. So we've got lemongrass. Here's the wild and free lemongrass. It looks like a grasshopper leg. Some of these have already been trimmed. I'm just going to show you how to trim this very quickly. So just chop off the end piece and chop off some of the rougher top pieces. Discard those. I'd like to get rid of usually the first layer of leaves around the lemongrass and then cut it in half. And then guess what? We're going to smash the hell out of it with the back of our knife. That's going to help it really open up. We're going to do that on all pieces of lemongrass. Just smash them, smash them, smash them. One more. Nice. And we're going to toss them right into the pot. Then we're going to put in some ginger. I'm a lazy man. One of my least favorite things to do in the world is peel ginger. So when I have an opportunity to not peel ginger and just chop it up, I get pretty excited. So all I'm going to do is chop up some ginger. Leave the ugly skin on that we would never eat. And I'm going to toss that in the pot as well. And then we'll strain all that liquid away to get rid of any flaky skin pieces that happen. So we'll get that on the heat and we'll move on to our next step. All right, so we have our coconut milk and water and lemongrass and ginger mix on the heat, just warming up to get infused. I want to mention too that I didn't go full. It requires 6 cups of liquid for the Israeli couscous, and I went half and half on that. I think if I went for a full 6 cups of coconut milk, it's going to be too thick, and by the time it starts to come to the boil, it's going to be hard to penetrate those Israeli couscous. So I went half and half, water and coconut milk. Now, we're going to address this beautiful, humble little chicken over here. I've got a number of garlic cloves. Come on over, Finn. And we're going to treat these the same way we treated the lemongrass and just smash the hell out of them for a minute. And then, that's perfect. we'll go ahead and kick them onto that cutting board. That cutting board is plastic, which is really the best thing to have when you're talking about having raw proteins that you're dealing with, because you can bleach the actual cutting board afterwards and get rid of any bacteria and germs that may happen. So what we're going to do is begin. This is a very key little trick that I'm sure many of you already know. We're going to go ahead and season the inside, the cavity of the bird. And so we want to make sure that we have one hand handling the protein and one hand that's clean, right? That we do not want touching the bird and then throwing your hand into the salt and the pepper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to generously salt the cavity. I know that may sound a little crazy, but it's true. If you season it well, then it's going to be seasoned and infused throughout the bird. So a little pro tip here. I already did my pepper grind and put it in a little bowl so that I can grab it. If you're flying solo like I am and don't have anybody else to hold your bird, this is a good way to make sure that you can, do what you need to do. All right, so that's good. That's some healthy seasoning going all throughout that cavity here. And then we're gonna wrap up with about 5 or 6 sprigs of thyme and 3 of those garlic cloves that we smashed up, and those are gonna go inside too. And now I'm fine using both hands because I'm done with salt and pepper, and I won't be contaminating the original containers. And honestly, you wanna get around and massage that. Massage the salt, the pepper, the garlic, the thyme, and really get it all in kind of infused and flavored all through that cavity. All right. And then we'll get this guy set up, and we're gonna truss this bird, and we'll be right back. Not trust, but okay, so we are now ready to truss the bird. Oh, there's something I wanted to say earlier. This little device on my shirt here is an amazing little microphone that hopefully improves the sound quality of this. It was an early birthday gift from my dear sisters-in-law, Lindsay and Cola. So thank you very much. They are encouraging this monster to do more of this stuff. So thank you. Hopefully it improves the quality of sound. So trussing that's T-R-U-S-S, trussing a chicken. So why do we do that in the first place? Well, what is it? Sorry, let me begin defining it. It's a little bit of kitchen twine, about 2 feet or so. And we're gonna basically, lasso and tie this bird up into a certain shape. And the reason why we do that essentially is to bring in the extremities, the wings, the legs, etc., and kind of ball them together nicely so that there's a bit more of an even cook throughout and less exposure to heat with extremities that are sticking out. That's the main idea behind it. So again, about a couple of feet of kitchen twine that you can find just about anywhere. I'm going to find the middle here. Come in a little closer, Keller, if you would please, if I can focus on the bird. So the bird itself, they're going to go legs toward you, breast on top. Find that middle again, and you're going to go right underneath the bird all the way to the kind of back bone towards the neck, right? And then essentially you're going to come up and over and cross in front of that part of the bird, in front of the medius part of the breast, and really just tie pretty tight there. And all I'm doing is doing like a shoestring tie, nothing fancy there. I'm going to pull that through so that it stays. I'm actually pretty uneven. Let me go ahead and fix that because that's going to be a problem in a minute. Give me just a second to pull that through. There we go, that's better. All right, so again, just right in front of the main cavity here. I'm just gonna pull it, I'm gonna shoestring cross it over and give that a really good tug. As you can see, that really plumps up the breast nicely up top there. All right, and then I'm going to essentially, I might even go for a knot to hold that in. I think I will. Pull that taut again. Now I want to clear those 2 lines. There we go. And get the legs crossed over. And all I'm going to do is essentially kind of lasso the legs on either side so that I can get a knot going again.
It's very 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh my God. It's a little bondage. Is that what you're describing, Kelly? Food and bondage, the crossover. And that's it. That's the long and the short of it. We have one more step here. I'm just going to tie my knot up top. There are different ways to truss a chicken. This is a pretty darn simple one, which is why I use it. It's effective. It does the job. And then I'll grab my scissors and cut that. Boom. The only thing left to do, is, as I mentioned, is about the extremities. So go ahead and grab those wings and the tips of those wings and jam them right behind and under the bird, so they are not exposed at all. Get the kind of back in there, Kel. See where I'm going? All the way under. And that gets our bird kind of compact and not sticking out as much as it would otherwise. Sometimes I use some toothpicks or tongs to kind of go through the wings and pull them in even tighter, but I think this is a pretty good spot where we are right now. So we're gonna do some mise en place where we've got the coconut milk going, we've got our bird truss, we'll season the whole thing at the end here. In the meantime, let's move through some things. So we've got some beautiful leeks that are gonna go in our vegetable bed. These two have already been trimmed, they're pretty perfect. I just thought I'd show you guys very quickly how we got there. So I like to trim off the hairy end of the root right out of the gate. We'll do more trimming to it, but that's just where I like to start and get rid of that mess. And then I go pretty much where that splits on that outer leaf to get rid of the upper dark leaves. The truth be told, I'll probably wind up trimming more of that off, but for right now, that's a good place to start. So I want to trim up this root end because again, this is going to go in the dish. I want it to look pretty as well as taste good and be easy to eat. So consequently, we're gonna make this guy look a little prettier. So we're gonna go to a 45-degree angle and use our knife to kind of cut through. And I'm just gonna rotate this leek around. We do want the end root to kind of maintain, not kind of maintain, but maintain, and not come apart completely. So be careful about how much you're trimming, but this is kind of like blunted in throughout. And then I usually look for my dip, which we don't have in this case. And I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that tough outer leaf for sure. And then it's sort of a question like, how tough is that top part? I'll probably give that another cut. Yeah, that seems a lot better, it's smarter to me. And then what we're gonna do is take the split that I've already created, go about 1/2 inch to the end of the root. We're losing that, guys, so might as well just face the truth and move on. There we go. Go about 1/2 inch to the end of the root and stab it in the middle and come down with your knife. Come over here, Cal, watch out for the dog. What we wanna do is open this guy up and run it through. Sorry, the sink's not very clean. We want to run it through some warm water because, again, leeks are infamous for having a ton of dirt in between those leaves as they grow up. And that is a good job. Let's go back to the cutting board. And I think that is perfect in terms of having some nice trimmed leeks that we can put in the dish by itself. And we'll be right back. So let's trim some rutabaga, shall we? Our bowl of rutabaga and turnips, get a look at them. This is what a rutabaga looks like. This is what a turnip, rutabaga, rutabaga. So this is what they look like. All we're gonna do for all of those guys, and by the way, it's 3 kind of, what's the size reference? 3 tennis ball sized rutabaga. I have some bigger ones. And the same size with the turnips, I have some smaller ones. So what I want to do is getting more turnips to kind of cover the mass, and I'll trim these guys down. So all I want to do on both ends is chop. So you have a nice even surface, or I should say an even top and bottom for you to do the next job. And all you're going to do here is move your knife through and cut the skin off, top and bottom. I'm not against using a vegetable peeler. I've done that before. It works just fine. But if you're speedy with a knife, this is not a bad way to do it. Flip it over. And you get the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and de-skin all of these guys, and I'm going to cut them into 3/4 inch wedges, and we'll show you what those look like in just a minute. So we have in the giant bowl, soon to be filled with vegetables, the 3/4 inch wedges of turnips, the whiter ones, and the rutabagas, the more yellowish ones. So we're going to continue to add to that. We've got 3 onions here, 3 kind of mid-sized to smallish onions. I peeled out peeled the tough outer skin and cleaned up the root end so it's not so fuzzy. And all I'm going to do, this couldn't be simpler, is just quarter these guys and throw them in there. I might consider, better not. Better leave them attached to the root. So big chunks are fine. Let's just live with that, shall we? Again, let's just go with quarters. This is a smaller onion. They'll get roasted. And they will, eventually they're going to peel into their layers anyway, so I'm not going to freak out about the fact that those are giant wedges in a couple cases, because they will kind of get the leaves themselves will get moved around in the overall mixture. Let's move into carrots. I have a quick, simple trick to show you here. We got some pretty beefy carrots on the top end there, on the root end. The trick with carrots, if you haven't picked up on it, apart from the onions I just mentioned, we want to create consistency in the size of the different vegetables. So obviously you go very much from a thinner end to a thicker end. So we're going to cut that in the middle and then go half on the thicker end and create sort of bite-sized chunks on the bias. Not overly complicated. I'm going to turn those. So those are pretty perfect. They're fairly, or at least a little bit more consistent, and they're going to go in the big pool, and we'll finish those up. Okay, so something I've been meaning to say for a couple of segments now. I have this chicken out. It's been out for about an hour and a half before we even started. It's 100% okay to have this. I want this guy at room temperature. So make sure you get this thing out of the refrigerator a full hour and a half to 2 hours. The recipe calls for about 4 to 5 pound chicken. I've got nearly a 6 here, so I've got a little extra time for it to come up to room temperature. It's perfectly trusty. All right, so still sitting there doing its thing. In the big magic bowl, we've got the rutabagas, we've got the turnips, we've got the onion wedges, and I made an executive decision and trimmed off some of these leeks a little bit more, and the carrots. Into that, we're going to throw in the remainder of our 4 or 5 smashed cloves of garlic. And I'm probably going to go with, let's say 5 to 10 sprigs of thyme. I'm going to dump in initially a 1/4 cup of canola oil. And I'm going to start to season. Again, pretty hefty. I would say a good 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt and several cranks of pepper. And as usual, I cut in more vegetables than I probably need, and that's fine because I can reserve those and eat them later when they're roasted nicely. So I know for factually, just by eyeballing this, I need more oil to get them nice and coated. And that's a good glug or 2. And then I'm going to just get in with my hands and move them around so that the seasoning and the oil gets coated everywhere. That's looking pretty darn good. And the thyme is moving around in different places, which is awesome. And that's looking pretty excellent. We just want kind of a thin coat of oil everywhere. You want to see sort of a sheen on every piece of vegetable. And we will go ahead and season that chicken and get this thing going into the oven very soon. All right, so we have our giant bed of beautiful vegetables that are oiled and well seasoned and herbed, and we've got a room temperature chicken who's well trussed. And so let's season him with salt and pepper. And so we're going to dump our remaining oil. This is, say, just a 1/4 cup or less. And I just want to coat him really so that he takes the seasoning well, sticks to his skin very well. So I'm going to massage it around and make sure that it is well covered, front and back and in between. And because I've been molesting a chicken, I'm going to go wash my hands. Mandatory. Sorry you have to watch this, but it's pretty important that you don't contaminate your salt and pepper. So make sure after you're touching raw poultry that you go and wash your hands pretty thoroughly. All right, and then we're gonna get heavy-handed with the salt again because nothing is better than well-seasoned poultry skin, right? So I try to get every nook and cranny. I'm gonna do some side throws, some drop aboves. Not gonna miss a trick. All right, and then I'm gonna do the same thing with my pepper. Get this really well coated in every crevice, nook and cranny that I can. All right, it's actually looking pretty darn good. All right, so we'll be back in a minute and we're gonna marry the two, get it in the oven and eat some food later. See you in a minute. All right, let's make some magic. I've got a heavy cast iron enamel coated pot or sort of large skillet. I like this one. It's a little on the fancy side. You don't need that at all. just a heavy bottom skillet, anything that's got, you know, a lot of room to support your chicken and all your vegetables, and it is oven safe. That's all you need ultimately. So we don't need any coating or anything here, but this is what it looks like. And we're just gonna move a bunch of these vegetables. I can tell already that we're not gonna be able to fit them all in, but we're gonna fit quite a few and make sure that everything is well represented in this mix. And I do love rutabagas, so I'm not missing any of those. Maybe we'll be able to go for the whole thing. Maybe. All right, let's grab another onion and tuck it away somewhere. I'd say if it stays in the pan, it goes in the oven, right? And I think we're pretty well represented. So let's give that a shot. Let's make a little nest for our bird. All right, we're gonna grab this guy, our well-seasoned bird, and get him right in the middle. And we're gonna finish this with some butter, about 4 tablespoons, that I'm just gonna get on top of the skin, mainly over the breast. I kind of divided, this is room temperature butter. But I want this kind of coating the breast. That's why it's easy to mush around a little bit over the legs, but that's my goal. Nah, that is the glory. Give me 1 second, we'll put this in the oven. So look at this. I mean, this is already gorgeous and it hasn't even been cooked yet. That's something I just want to say very quickly. On the topic of tedious and inaccessible, this is such an accessible dish. It's such an easy dish to make. All it takes are a couple of extra steps to ensure flavor and guarantee a really great cook. And it's really cool when you're able to make something so simple and do it with perfection. It exalts the whole dish. It's really a pretty cool experience. So enough yakking, I'll get it into the oven. The oven is at 475. We are gonna get that in there for just 25 minutes, and then we're gonna drop it down to 325 for our remaining 45 minutes. So let's go ahead and get it in on the mid-lower rack. All right, everybody say 9-9, and we'll be back in 25 minutes. A quick but important correction. We just put the bird in the oven at 475 for 25 minutes. I goofed up on the drop-in temperature. We're gonna go to 400 after that 25 minutes for 45 minutes. And that's it. The chicken is in the oven. I'm gonna give another quick note here because I think it's kind of important. So just memorizing the numbers here again, we start at 475 for 25 minutes. After that time frame, we go to 400 for 45 minutes. Here's the king of the matter, the real important piece. You're looking for a temperature, which is 160, and the thickest part of the meat. Again, my bird's bigger, it's close to 6 pounds, so it might take a little bit longer in each temperature integral. As you can see, we're trying to get a high heat on this bird and then drop it down for a little bit longer. So I'll probably give an extra 5 minutes on either end and check my temperature because that's going to be the most important part. All right, let's get started on the Israeli couscous while all that's happening. The couscous takes 10 minutes, which is awesome. But in the meantime, we need to strain our coconut milk and water mixture and get rid of all the impurities from the ginger skin and the lemongrass and anything that might have fallen out in the meantime. And I've made a little bit of a mess, but I can live with that. And the reason why I'm putting it back in the measuring cup is that, and that's a good reason, I want 6 cups of liquid, ultimately. I'm gonna use my little Brita here. And so I'm a little shy at the moment because this has been reducing for a good half an hour or so while we were doing our prep. And we want the proper amount of liquid for the couscous, which I'll combine in just a minute. So we have our strained coconut milk that's been infused with ginger and lemongrass and the water. And I'm gonna set this aside and make an executive call. It only takes about 10 minutes for the couscous and the liquid to come together, and maybe 10 or so minutes for it to come up to the boil. So let's save that for the end so that we get some nice hot starches with our hot protein and vegetables. So we'll do that, and we still have time at 475. Quiz kid question, Dylan. What do all the vegetables in our dish have in common?
They're all roasted?
They will be roasted. Kelly, I choose you.
They all grow underground.
Roots.
Root
Yeah.
vegetables, well played, educated family. Root. This is a root vegetable dish. So anyway, we'll set this aside. We'll let this cook, and then we'll bring everything together in a bit. So the chicken is out of the oven, I've checked the temperature a couple of times. We're at a perfect 160. So this is the time for it to come out. You can see, if you come in a little closer, Kelly, some of the vegetables are getting nice and caramelized. So what we're gonna do is get this guy out of here. Nothing fancier than a couple of forks to get it over to a cutting board with some aluminum foil to let it rest for 20 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and tent it just a little bit and just let it hang out and rest for 20 minutes. What that does is allow for the juices to get sucked back into the bird. If we went right into it right now and cut it out, you'd find all the juices running all over the cutting board. So we let all proteins generally rest a bit so that they can get settled in. The cool thing about these vegetables that I really like a lot is the idea that I can now get them onto the stovetop and check how well cooked they are now that I have 20 minutes and apply heat. And if they're a little al dente or the potatoes aren't cooked enough through, I can add some heat and stir them around in the pan juices and get them cooked through nicely while the bird is resting. Finally, we're multitasking here. We're going to go ahead and we've got the coconut milk and water mixture, etc. It's come up to the boil. We're going to dump in the couscous. This is a very standard rice scenario. We're going to add a little bit of butter, say 4 teaspoons, a little bit of salt. We're going to give it a quick stir. And then we're going to lower the heat and simmer for 10 minutes. Bye-bye rice, or bye-bye couscous. Down really low. And we'll see that in 10 minutes. We'll check the doneness of our vegetables and apply more heat. We'll let the bird rest, and then we'll get this all on a plate for some very hungry tigers. This is our finished product. The vegetables are perfectly done and a little more roasted on the top. The chicken has been resting. It's in great shape. Our couscous is done and tender and coconutty and delicious. So I'm gonna carve this bad boy, get it on a plate and show you what it looks like, and we're gonna wrap this up. All right, this is it, home stretch. I'm so excited. We got this bad boy carved up. I'm starting with this shot so you can see that this is real, and I picked the carcass clean, and these are the parts, and they came out beautifully cooked. I'm really excited about it. So I'm gonna get this out of the way, and let's show you the plating. We'll do one plating for you guys. So the chicken looks lovely. The vegetables, that's still hot, are so wonderful. Check them out. There's some just beautiful like pan juices there. They're all cooked perfectly through with some nice caramelization. It's just really exciting. And then our couscous came out really beautifully as well. Fluffy and nice and filled with coconut flavors. So let's plate, shall we? I'm gonna go with a really solid scoop, maybe 2 of the couscous with that coconut, lemongrass, ginger flavor. Let's just make a mound of that. Plating off the top of my head here, I'm gonna grab a piece of chicken breast. I like to lean my proteins up against the starch a lot of times. We'll go with the leg in this case. There we go, that's pretty good. And then let's get these beautiful vegetables on the plate too. Honestly, there's so much color in the vegetables and so much character in terms of the plating them that I'm gonna leave them as kind of the star of the dish in a lot of ways. I want the protein to shine and look gorgeous, but there's so much contrast here. The couscous is kind of mellow in the coconut flavor. The color turned out pretty pale, but we got a really nice crisp brown on the chicken skin and a ton of color and flavor in the vegetable medley. So that's how I would plate that. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Perfectly roasted chicken with root vegetable bed and some coconut couscous. Give it a shot. I think it's a tasty one. I'll give you the verdict after this. But in the meantime, subscribe, like, all that good stuff, share, notify if you like what you're seeing. And thanks a lot for sticking around. Have a good night. Thank you.